Hey guys, welcome back to another watercolor tutorial. I was not sure if I was going to post this video because honestly I wasn't too happy with the final result. However, I do think that artists, no matter how good they are, how experienced they are, they all make mistakes, they all make artwork that they're not happy with, and I decided to publish this anyways just to show you the process of creating something and not really liking the final outcome. And I want to share a couple of tips telling you guys what I would do differently or what I wouldn't have done if I were to redo this piece. So I'm going to be painting a bird, and to begin I've just wet my paper and I've created a circle using water and filled the top of that circle with ultramarine blue. Then I've dragged out a little bit more water for the back or the body of the bird, and as you can see here I'm just adding a little bit more blue and a little dot of gamboge hue for the chest area. I'm using a smaller brush and I'm just kind of wisped out some of the tail feathers or where the tail feathers would go, and I'm just kind of defining that with a little bit more ultramarine blue. So number one thing you probably noticed is that I'm not using a sketch for this. I'm actually pretty happy with how the first part of this project went. I really like how the wet on wet looked without the sketch. If I were doing this again, I might do a really light pencil sketch to begin with, but that's just my personal preference. But I was really trying to focus on using the water and just adding light washes of color to kind of indicate the presence of a bird instead of making it too detailed and literal. So you can see that I've just used the tip of my brush to sort of drag some of that water around and then drop in bits of color wherever I want to. Now I'm grabbing lamp black and I'm just going to really roughly sketch in some of the feet of the bird. And then I'm going to take some of that same color and drop that into the back of the bird. With the wet on wet technique, you're dropping wet paint into wet paint, so you're going to get those blooms and those kind of cauliflower effects occasionally. That all depends on how much water is already on your paper and how much water is in your brush. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of burnt umber and create a branch for the bird to sit on. I'm doing this really loosely again. I wanted to keep the entire piece really loose, and honestly, loose painting is something that I really struggle with. I think that I pay way too much attention to detail, and that's just kind of how I have trained myself to look at things. If I'm following a reference photo or something, I always want to pick out the details and I always want to try to refine them. So creating something really loose like this bird is actually really hard for me. Now I'm going in and creating the beak of the bird. One thing I will say is I'm really dissatisfied with how the face of the bird turned out. You'll see as we near the end of the video, but I think I know what went wrong, and I'll try to explain that as I go along. I'm just using those same colors, lamp black and ultramarine, and the very tip of my brush to kind of soften some of the feather areas around the outside of the wing. This bird in particular had a darker area, a darker face, around the front section where the beak is, so I was trying to replicate that using the lamp black and then dropping in a little bit more ultramarine. I am happy with how the body of the bird turned out. I really like how there's some white space in there still. I like how the colors have dried and blended together. That part I am not mad about. I think the problem started when I started to go a little overboard. So now I'm going to add an eyeball now that everything is dry. I really do not like how this eyeball looks. I don't think it's placed right, and I don't think I should have used such a harsh black color. Also, the beak is something I'm not happy with as well. I think I really should have left some white space on the beak to make it look a little more highlighted, a little less like such a flat black color. It doesn't look too bad here, but it gets a little bit worse, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. I'm just trying to fix it right now, just kind of dragging some of that dark color outwards a little bit. And when I was finished with it here, I thought it looked okay. The eye, I'm definitely still not happy with, but I'm gonna dry it and I'm going to outline the eyeball with a white gel pen, because if you look at photos of birds, they generally have that sort of ring around their eyeball. So that's kind of what I was trying to do here. And then using ultramarine, I decided to go in and add some splatters. This is where I think things kind of started to go a little bit out of hand. It didn't turn out how I wanted it to. What I wish I had done first before starting the bird, if I wanted to add that background color, I would have added it first. I would have done it before I started painting the bird, and I would have had more of a wet surface to apply the splatters to and allow those splatters to kind of blend out and maybe mesh with some other colors if I added some to the background as well. I decided to try to add a little bit of a background color. I had way too much water going on here and I didn't like how it looked. I ended up using a tissue and just blotting it up afterwards because I was not happy with it. I think, again, because the bird was created first, I'm trying to kind of balance out the composition a little bit by adding background color, but I really don't think that this piece needed it. I think it was just getting to be a little bit too much and taking the focus away from the bird with the colors in the background. That is just something I will think about in the future. I will make sure that I have more of a solid plan before I start just diving in with a whole bunch of color and randomly placing it everywhere. With wet on wet, I think you definitely have to have a plan in mind. So with the bird dry, I'm just going back in now, re-wetting some areas and dropping in a little bit more color because I wanted it to be a little bit more vibrant. And you can see that when I added the dark color to the face, it sort of blended in with the beak a little too much. And I think I could have saved it a little bit if I blotted off a little bit of the color on the beak and sort of made a highlight, made it look a little bit more defined from the rest of the body, because right now it just kind of looks like it's blending into the face. I'm also using the tip of the brush. I thought this was kind of a cool effect with the little feathers. You saw that I just kind of pressed down on the brush and used the actual shape of the brush to create those feathers along the wings. I actually like how that turned out. Now I decided to try to get a little bit more crazy, and I probably would have stopped here, but I wanted to try out some different effects. So I decided to wet some of the area around the bird, and I kind of wanted it originally to look like the color was kind of emerging or like splashing out from behind the bird. I'm sure you guys have all seen those pictures of artwork of different subjects, and it looks like there's just like splashes of color. I was trying to replicate that, but again, I should have done this beforehand. I don't think I was doing this part correctly. So basically I'm just trying again on this side, wetting some of the area, and then trying to add some corresponding colors. I used a couple different colors actually here, and I just tried to drop those in, and it kind of looks like smushed birthday cake. You know, the birthday cake with the little colored speckles in it? It kind of looks like that. I'm not too happy with it. So after I did that, I was like, okay, I need to balance this out somehow. So I just started adding more colors, and at this point, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to fill in some of the space. So here I added some more water to try to make really loose leaves coming off of this branch. So I used sap green and some water, and I just sort of tried pulling out some leaves. It looks okay. I don't think it goes with the style of this bird. This kind of is starting to look a little bit more tropical. But looking at this now, that face is still bugging me so much. I'm not sure if this piece would have looked better if I did the face differently, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I decided once again to go back in with some splatters. This time I used alizarin crimson, just a tad, and I just started splattering it. And to me, this kind of looks like a big mess. I should have stopped when I was happy with it, but sometimes it's really hard with watercolor. You just want to keep going and you want to keep on seeing what else you can do. And I totally understand if some of you are like, oh, but that actually, like, I like how that looks. And that's totally fine. And if you paint this way, that is totally fine. This is just not my style. And I think when you're painting it something that isn't your style, you're not like really feeling it, it just feels weird. Like it just feels wrong. And you think of all the things that you could have done differently. So yes, that's kind of my dilemma here, is I'm trying to find my style with this wet on wet technique and it's not working. And it was just frustrating me a little bit. So here I have re-wet the head area, and I wanted it to look like the bird, I guess, had more of that splattery watercolor effect. So I tried to pull out some of that ultramarine blue and just kind of make it splash out into the background. And as well, I tried to do that with the chest. I don't know how I feel about this. I think I, again, should have just left it. But you guys, I couldn't stop. I don't know what it was. I think I was trying to save this piece somehow and maybe make it like extra watercolor effect looking. I don't even know, but I was trying to save it, and sometimes things just go a little overboard. Here I am ruining the beak one more time. I think I've officially taken out all detail, all definition that there was a beak there, and it looks like just this thing emerging from the face. But I really should have left some white space in there. I really should have dabbed off some areas to make it a little bit more defined and maybe a little bit three-dimensional, just so it doesn't look like it's just this triangle coming out of its face. So that's when I decided to finally give up. I hope that you guys liked this video. I hope you got a couple tips out of it, and I hope to see you in the next one.